Is it gone, do you think? What's the whisper? Or is it just paused?
No, I think it's gone. The Times this morning, owned by the same company as The Sun, published a story saying that last Friday was the last time we would see a regular page 3 topless slot. Now, will topless material ever appear in The Sun again? Well, if somebody famous, let's say Madonna, decides to drop it all, so to speak, then I think you would expect to see that. And theoretically, they have left the door ajar, so that in the event that there were to be a catastrophic decline in readership, which, by the way, I very much doubt will happen, and I don't think they will think will happen either, then theoretically they could bring it back. Remember, The Sun have said absolutely nothing on the record other than, page 3 will appear as usual in between pages 2 and 4. So, however, my information from inside the company is that this is it as far as page 3 is concerned. So, yes, I think page 3 as we know it in print has gone. It will remain online, and if you want to go to page3.com, you'll still be able to get it.
Kate Smurthwaite, we heard there one of the glamour models who appeared on page 3 defending it, saying it was a celebration of her sexuality. She didn't feel exploited. What was so wrong with it?
Well, I'm all for women feeling that they can celebrate their sexuality. I just don't think that the right place to do that is in an area that's labelled news. I'm absolutely not against breasts or nipples. It would be quite difficult for me to live my life if I was, to be honest. I'd get changed for bed at night and have to have a little sit down in shock and disgust, having been offended at my own image in the mirror. Of course, that's not the issue. The issue is, page 1, George Osborne's budget. Page 2, what's happening in Iraq or Afghanistan. Page 3, a woman's bare breasts. This isn't news. Women are absolutely encouraged to celebrate their sexuality in places where people go and celebrate their sexuality, but that's not what's newsworthy. And I think this is a fantastic victory. It's been a very long campaign and a very sort of enthusiastically fought one on all fronts. And I hope that it might not be the end of the road. There's a lot more we could do about women in the media, but I really hope that it gives other people out there a sense of encouragement that actually your voice can be heard and that actually things can change if you speak out about these things and keep pushing and keep making your point. Then things can change, and I think it's absolutely fantastic that here we are finally celebrating a little victory on this front.
Kate points out there it's not the end of the road for the campaign because, of course, there is still page 3. There's still page 3 in the Star, isn't there? And you look at the Sport and other papers like that, there is still a great deal of nudity in lots of the other papers, the tabloid papers. Do you think they will follow suit, or do you think that they will keep the nipples in there?
Well, the Daily Star, I imagine, may well continue. I don't know. I don't live in Richard Desmond's head, so I don't know what he'll imagine. But I mean, this was different though because it was iconic. Remember Murdoch's pitch when he bought The Sun in 1969 and launched page 3 just a year later. His pitch was to say to the working bloke, "We're here for you." So, in addition to being on your side in the matter of politics, never giving in to the establishment and all of that stuff, which was said very loudly, the idea that he would give his readers what they wanted in terms of, or what he said they wanted in terms of page 3, was all about saying, well, we're not going to let the BBC, the Guardian, the feminists, the politicians, the liberals tell you, our beloved readers, what you can have. We're going to give you what you want. But look, so it had more to it than just to see a simple commercial thing. It was part of identifying with that group of readers. Now, the thing is, the campaigners are absolutely right about this, and Murdoch has spotted it. The world has changed. And so now you're looking at this from the point of view of a company desperate to rebuild its reputation in the wake of phone hacking and all of that. Page 3 was beginning to ring all the wrong bells for a socially responsible company and not enough of the right bells. And although I understand they had some research inside which suggested they may lose at one stage as many as 200,000 paying readers to the Star if they drop page 3, the calculation now, I guess, is even if they lose some, that's probably worth it, and they're not sure they're going to lose very many. Remember, 50% of the Sun's readership are female, and of course we all live in a new world. This is not 1970.
It's incongruous, isn't it, Kate Smurthwaite? Because, as Steve was saying, so many of the Sun's viewers are women, and you look at the other newspaper, which a lot of women read, the Daily Mail, and there is a lot of that. There isn't the same level of nudity, but there is a lot, especially on its website as well, of pictures of women in their bikinis. Women like looking at other pictures of women, don't they?
Well, I mean, it's interesting that that Steve picks up and says, oh, you know, the campaign will continue with the Star and so on. In actual fact, I think the campaign, you know, has very clearly said that it wants to be about a much broader issue. I mean, it started out, Lucy-Anne Holmes said she started the No More Page 3 campaign when Jessica Ennis won her gold medal, and she expected Jessica Ennis to be the biggest picture of a woman in the newspapers that day, and of course in the Sun she wasn't. And the No More Page 3 campaign already sponsors some women's football teams, and I think they're very interested in doing a lot more than worrying about things like the Star. I mean, of course, we'll take every victory we can get, but having more coverage of women in sports, having more coverage of women doing the other important things that women do and being celebrated for something other than what they look like. I don't, to be honest, think that the breakdown of who reads these newspapers is particularly important. I mean, the buyers and the people who end up seeing it and the way that it just enters our culture more generally. These are kind of inevitable things. I think what's important, though, is that we're actually talking about the way women are portrayed in the media. And I must just pick up on one thing that Steve said, in this idea that, well, you know, times have moved on and it's all just going to change inevitably. You know, I hear that a lot, and I have to say that I really don't subscribe to it. I think what has happened is some really enthusiastic people have raised their voices and stuck their necks above the parapet. You know, when women were given the vote best part of a century ago, again, initially the reaction was, well, you know, times have moved on, and they did work very hard during the war in the land army, didn't they? And when we look back with the benefit of hindsight, that's ridiculous. The reason women got the vote was because they threw themselves in front of horses, and I think the fact that these women have fought so brilliantly and so boldly, they should be celebrated, and to try and take that victory away from them, I think is a real shame, because it is a victory for campaigning, and I hope that other campaigners equally passionate about other issues will take hope and vigour from this and redouble their efforts to change other aspects of the media, because there is still a lot out there that could be done a lot better.
OK, on that point of Steve, that it was a campaign and it was the campaign that did it, whether you agree with that or not, when we look at what's happened over Charlie Hebdo, isn't this the same argument, essentially, that the Charlie Hebdo said? They said, we want to publish these images. Why shouldn't the Sun be damned? Just because this opposition group, No More Page 3, says they don't want to see naked women on Page 3, why should a paper be cowed by a pressure group? I have every right to be offended by it, but they have every right to print it, don't they?
Well, look, there's lots of things. There's lots of things at risk of getting confused here. I'm not trying to take anything away from the impact of the campaigners. All I'm saying is, as a consequence, in part of what the campaigners have done, we don't live in the same sort of world as we did in 1970, which means that the commercial calculation that Rupert Murdoch will be making about this, and has made about this, and has indicated as long ago as February 2013, when he indicated on Twitter, of all places, that he thought that maybe it was out of time as a concept, that there's a reason for that, which is that the world has moved on. So the commercial calculation in this world, does change. Would it be fair to say that the Sun have been cowed by some campaign? I don't think that's right, really. I think that the world has changed. The campaigners have given voice to that, have amplified all of that, and have made a very strong case, which is that if you want to see this sort of material, you can go online and get it. You can still go online to the Sun and get it if you want to. But the idea, and a very senior editor at the Sunday Times said to me on the media show on Radio 4 last year, Eleanor Mills, she's got a couple of daughters, the idea that you're sitting on the bus and somebody opens the paper and is ogling this around in normal circuit. It really just isn't right. So I think the calculation that's been made is a commercial one, which is to say that in the here and now, it's not going to do for the Sun what it used to do for the Sun. It's more trouble than it's worth.
One group of people, of course, that have complained about this are the Page 3 girls themselves. One, Rhiannon Sugden, went on Twitter this morning to say, it's only a matter of time before everything we do will be dictated to by comfy shoe-wearing, no bra-wearing man-haters. Kate Smurfit, would you put yourself in that group? I'm clearly in that group also.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it, when people with no real argument to fall back on resort to these, very unfortunate sexist stereotypes. I mean, the truth is that they're absolutely entitled to raise their voices and say that they want to do this and that they're enjoying it, etc., etc. But actually, over the years I've been on these, debate shows very much like yours, often with Page 3 models, and And I've met some of them, and they're quite right. They're not all stupid. They're not all, helpless, hopeless causes, as it were. In fact, there's some very smart and wonderful young women, and I can't wait for our country to be able to use their resources as, nurses and politicians and campaigners and business leaders. There's some very smart women out there, and I think it's great news that they're going to now be presented with the opportunity to go and do something else with their lives, and good luck to them. I wish them the very best. But to flip back to the point about free speech, this isn't in a way the same issue as what we have with Charlie Hebdo. What we're looking at with Charlie Hebdo is people who were angry at what was being chosen by editors and what was being published in a newspaper, who reacted in the wrong way with violence and in a way that was completely inappropriate. This is a case of people reacting just the right way by seeing what other people had expressed, what had been published, and raising their own voices. And what happens when everybody raises their voice is that somewhere in the middle an editorial decision is made. Just as by the same token, if you knew that I was somebody who couldn't stop swearing every 3 seconds, you wouldn't have invited me on your show in the first place. An editorial decision is made, and
okay.
I think this is a victory for free speech, because people have felt able to come out and say what they think, and their voices have been listened to, which is brilliant.